Welcome. Thank you to We Need You, serving children and families in a rapidly changing world. My name is Nerissa Street. I am the founder of Be Your Own Answer. We are a technical assistance firm providing strategic planning and development for anyone who wants to do community impact in a world with joy, prosperity, healing, and play. Again, my name is Nerissa Street, and I am so happy to welcome two amazing top-level executives from the Children's Services Council of Broward. The Children's Services Council of Broward is the top agency in Broward County that provides funding and resources, connection, and collaboration for organizations whose job it is to serve children and family in Broward County. So happy to welcome our two guests today. Yay! Yay! So thank you so much for joining us. We have Dr. Sue Gallagher, who is our Chief Innovation Officer, and we have Dr. Sharetta Remeke, who is the Chief Equity and Community Engagement Officer. I'm hearing the applause and everything in the back there, so we're gonna give you guys a round of applause. I'm really excited to have you here. We had a bunch of questions that were posted, DM'd to me. I had people on the phone saying, hey, if you have some question, and so they were telling me all kinds of things. I wrote all of them down. We have a completely full show. And so I want to get right into it. So let's get started. All right. So our first question. So I want you all to introduce yourselves, but I'm going to ask you in kind of a roundabout way so that everybody can kind of get an idea as to who you are. So thank you for making time for this chat. My first question to you, and I'm asking both of you, and hopefully within the answer to this question, you'll build in your bio. And I wanted to read your bio, but I knew it was going to take about 5 minutes for each of you. So I'm going to ask you to kind of build in a little bit about who you are into the answer to this question. So you both hold high-level positions in the Children's Services Council of Broward. I'm so delighted that this agency thinks enough of the future to develop both of your positions. So we'll start with Sue. What inspired you to get involved with this line of work? And can you tell us a little bit about your career trajectory?
Yes, and thank you, Nerissa. It's great to be here this afternoon. Thanks for the invitation.
Sure.
Really looking forward to this conversation. So my journey to today really had a very interesting origin. I actually have some degrees in religious studies and ministry. And so that sense of awe and wonder and honoring and love that runs through many religious traditions is an important stream of my work. Additionally, I've spent, it'll be 17 years here at Children's Services Council this month, which has been just a joy and a delight to be a part of this amazing organization. Prior to my time with the Children's Services Council, I worked in nonprofits, working with people with developmental disabilities. And in that nonprofit work, learned about performance measurement, data, sort of what ways we can give ourselves feedback about how are we doing? Is what we're doing making any kind of a difference? So that's also an important stream of the work. And then lastly, I'm really intrigued and curious about creating something that's never existed before, right? Like we have a society that has a history of harms and injustices, and we are at a point where we know we can do things better and different, and together we can create that. So thus the kind of title of the Chief Innovation Officer is creating that which didn't exist before to ensure that all have an opportunity to thrive.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So the sense of awe, the sense of data, the understanding of the need to create something that didn't exist before, and you have right next to you the chief equity and community engagement officer who's like hand in hand in doing that. So Dr. Rimeke, tell us about your involvement, because I like already I'm like, this is amazing.
It is. The energy is awesome. Thank you again, Nerissa, for this invitation and the platform, which is so important to getting out the word. So my journey, when that question you asked, I was sitting here in my line of work. I don't see it as a line of work. I see it as more of purpose being fulfilled. When we go to college, when most go to college, is to go to get some knowledge and, to get some experience, gain some experience towards our career aspirations. So here I am as a high school senior graduate, first generation college student, heading to the University of Florida, go Gators, to study pharmacy. And so I was all excited to study pharmacy. And then in my sophomore year, life took a twist. I got pregnant my sophomore year at the University of Florida. So I came home, had my baby, but I went back to the University of Florida. And the focus of my studies shifted from pharmacy to health education. And that was based on the lived experience I had going through my pregnancy and childbirthing, that I said I need to change my focus. So when I changed that focus, it opened up a door for me to do an internship at a school for pregnant and parenting teens. Thus started my journey around maternal child health. So I have been for the past, I hate to say this number, 35 years working in maternal child health in nonprofit sectors, really championing, trying to mitigate those things that were causing racial disparities in birth outcomes. I have gone from being a program participant to a direct service worker, to a program manager, to a program director, and now I currently get to serve at the CSC as the first Chief Equity and Community Engagement Officer. So I'm excited about this journey, and it is very important because one of the things that my dynamic team get to do is a lot of community engagement. And I am excited to be a part of the decisions and the oversight of that work because I am the community. I've always been in Broward County, grew up in Broward County, so glad to be in this position to be able to make some impact and make some change.
Okay, so that is absolutely fantastic. I see we have, I think I see something spinning. So I know we'll get Sue back. There we go. So from program participant to program visionary, and I think it feels like both of your careers are really laying the groundwork for the work of this agency that has its ear to the ground. Both of you, first of all, being hired, and I think both of you know I just love the work of the Children's Services Council in general because of what I've seen you all have been able to do. But knowing that you all were intentionally brought on in these leadership positions just really says a lot about the organization in general.
And if I could add, Nerissa, actually my position was created. My predecessor was retired, and CSC had been doing a lot of work in the community around equity work and inclusion work. And they had been laid the groundwork, really took it as a priority and prioritized that work. So much so that they created this position just to show the commitment of the organization to do that work. So very glad to be here at this time.
Yeah, that really says a lot, particularly as we said, the goal of this conversation is helping organizations who I know who are listening in on where they stand and what resources that they can use in this rapidly changing world. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that. So I'm going to ask this question to Sue. Can you share your organization's vision for community impact and how you see grassroots nonprofits fitting into this vision, particularly because of both of you have had direct hands in this kind of work?
Yeah, great, thanks. So our vision at the Children's Services Council is that all children have the opportunity to realize their dreams, their hopes, to fulfill their potential, and be nourished by a safe community and family, right? And so we know that that doesn't exist right now for all children and families, and that's our North Star.
Mm-hmm.
And our CEO and president, Cindy Ehrenberg-Seltzer, has a really important tagline for us, which is that CSC doesn't succeed unless the funded providers, the community-based organizations, succeed. And the providers don't succeed unless the children and families they're serving succeed, right? So we see ourselves very connected to the success of the children and families and the providers, right? They're not separate. They're integral to that process. And so we do everything in our capacity to support the success of the providers, who can then turn around and support the success and the growth and the development of the children and families.
That's essential. I mean, and thinking that you have that as a North Star. If the children succeed, then the funded partners succeed. If the funded partners succeed, then the Children's Services Council has success. So
and the community succeeds. It's even another level.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that then lends itself to for us to understand then if our general goal is the community succeeding, and in order to do that we need to have specific partners. My question is, what qualities does CSA look for in a nonprofit partner? And Dr. Rumeke, if you could answer that would be amazing.
Definitely. And you're right. The partnership is key and important in that process. So we at CSC, we place a premium on, several key qualities that we believe are essential for successful collaboration. Firstly, as we said, and Sue shared, that what our vision is and how we see the work that we do with children and community. When we're looking to partner, we're looking for people who value alignment, who values align with our mission and values. They have to be same alignment, the same vision, hope, desires we have for others. We want those partners to have those visions. Secondly, we see partners who are innovative and adaptable. You heard that. You heard how we are so innovative. It is so refreshing to sit in management and planning meetings and to hear the innovation and then to see it go into implementation and then be on the fruition of the things that come through. So we want the same for people we partner with. We're looking for partners who are innovative and adaptable. And we prioritize transparency and accountability. We want to work with nonprofits that are open and honest in their communications, financial practices, and programmatic outcomes. We believe that trust is foundation of any successful partnership, whether that's a marriage or whether that's a collaborative effort, and right. Transparency is the key to building and maintaining trust. We also value that collaboration and partnership. Most impactful solutions often require a multi-sector approach. We can't do it alone. We need that approach. So we look for nonprofit partners who are willing to collaborate with us as well as with other organizations and stakeholders. We don't need any one-man shows around here because we want to achieve shared goals. And finally, we look for evidence of impact and sustainability. That's mostly my colleague area. She is in the research and planning department as well. We want to invest in programs and organizations that are making a real difference in the lives of those they serve and have a clear plan for long-term sustainability and scalability. The bottom line is we want to work with entities that where we can maximize our collective impact and create positive change in our community. And the bottom line, we are not asking or seeking anything from a partner that we are not willing to do ourselves.
And I will ditto that as being someone who has directly benefited from a Children's Services Council experience. You all are in on the team with us, very much so. And to the thing that I thought was really interesting that you said, innovative and adaptable, transparent. I've worked with a lot of organizations in developing, grant programming and doing the responses to your RFPs, which for those who are listening, RFPs are requests for proposals. And sometimes I'm talking to clients and they want to kind of make themselves bigger. And I'm like, no, no, no. Instead of making yourself bigger, collaborate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that transparency, the fact that you all are allowing small but nimble organizations to be truthful about their size.
Mm-hmm.
But then also, to your point of multi-sector approach, looking at an organization that is holding hands with other organizations. I think you're being very public in saying that it's okay for us to be small, but in our smallness, as long as we're willing to take that multi-sector approach, link hands, be accountable,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can be transparent and say, hey, this is what I've got in my hands, but I'm willing to work with this other organization here and this other organization here, because we all need to work together to help our children and families. I think that is very, very, it's inspiring to hear a large organization say it's okay to be small.
Yes. And sometimes smallness is people's superpower, because they're able to connect, like you said, with other entities to make a bigger impact. So don't shy away from that, because you can't get the authentic help you need by not being transparent.
So thinking about that, then, do you all have, if you're open to sharing an example of a successful type of partnership with a small nonprofit? What was successful, and how do you measure that impact? And I'll ask anyone to answer that.
I'll take it, Sue, if you don't mind. We just had a recent example, and I can talk about this publicly because sentiment of gratitude was shared with our council just at our past meeting. Gilda's Club South Florida applied and received one of our capacity building grants, in which they used the funding to see if it made sense to do a capital campaign for a new building. So they wrote a grant, and we fund them to do a feasibility study to see if they had the capacity to do this capital campaign to help their organization. Well, as a result of that feasibility study, they moved from a 4,000 square foot house, listen to this, to a 15,000 square foot building that provides multi-service cancer care for Broward County. So, the CEO says it very well. She said that the assistance that CSC provided began the transformation, not just about moving from one building to another, but even helping the organization grow. They went from 8 staff to 13 full-time staff and 20 contracted workers. They increased their operating budget. But this is the outcome, how we measure. This is the one that I love the most. Last year, they served 3,300 individuals, and this year will serve even more people impacted by cancer. And the key to this, we were able to help them build capacity through that process, because those grants go to organizations who operating budget is under $1 million. So it's considered small. But the organization has committed to providing a return on investment. And that return, they said, is that they will serve the community to their full potential. That's the best return on investment we could ask for. So that was a great example to show how those partnerships can be successful with small nonprofits.
So I think what's really interesting, a few things I want to break apart with that, because I think we just think of funding in terms of, you give me money, I buy a pen, the pen goes to the kid. A feasibility study, which is, I have an idea for how I can best serve my community, but I need to do some research, is really very much indicative of your organization supporting us on a very deep level. Mm-hmm. Because that means that we, as you say, capacity building, we have the ability to say, okay, you know what, I think I want to move forward. And so I think a lot of us feel like when we're applying for grants or applying for resources, we have to have it all figured out. And a feasibility study, you all funding that is amazing. So to that end, what other types of resources does CSC offer to small nonprofits?
We definitely, like I said, we want to work with them to build capacity, and that's in every aspect, whether it's organizational or individual. We do skill building trainings where they can come in and learn how to write grants. They can come in to learn basic skills of, how to build a board, things like that. Our agency capacity building committee actually meets quarterly. What they need to do is when the banner goes up, go to our website, sign up, and get on our agency capacity building email list, and you will receive like a lot of communications, newsletters, grant opportunities. And when we have those quarterly meetings, we bring in speakers and other resources. We listen to the group to see what their needs are. And we bring in speaker and subject matter experts to talk to them one-on-one. We do executive business coaching. We do sponsorships where we help small nonprofit organizations if they want to do an event or something like that, where they can apply up to $2,000 in some cases to get some funding to help them with an event or a conference or something that they want to put to expand their reach and their scope. We also do our capacity building grant, which Gilda Club took advantage of for those organizations that are those 501c3s that are under $1 million to help them build that structural capacity to do that. We've had people who hired consultants to put together strategic plans or how to develop boards. And with that, they also get expert coaching through the, I'm gonna get on Small Business Development Corp at FAU, and they get that one-on-one professional coaching sessions. We also have an opportunity when organizations have need volunteers. We have a partnership with Hands On South Florida where we can get volunteers who are screened and who some are trained in some areas to work with these nonprofits in areas that they may need it. But one of the things I'm excited about that we really start doing is we've been exposing the nonprofits to how government affairs can impact their operations. We bring in our government affairs manager, and he talks about the support, the importance of learning of advocacy and how advocacy supports nonprofits and how you can even use that or learn about even the funding appropriation process. So we brought him in to talk about that. So we really, try to support nonprofits in every angle because, as my colleague said, if the nonprofits and the providers are not successful, this whole paradigm shifts. So those are some of the services we provide for them right now.
And what I'm hearing is you all take a multi-sector approach, just like you're asking us to take a multi-sector approach.
I said we wouldn't ask you to do anything we wouldn't do ourselves. So.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. So all of that, the policy, governmental affairs, capacity building, small business development, that tells me that you all have an ear to your community. You all are very clear about what's needed for capacity building so that we, your partners, are capable of moving forward. So I'm going to ask Sue this question. Because you guys always have your ear to the community, what do you think are the most significant challenges that you see coming forward? Our innovation officer, the person who's looking ahead, what do you see our challenges are coming forward?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we as a sector want to build our capacity to do is to both see things that advance us, but get feedback on the ways that it's not advancing us. And I'll give you a very specific example. In the late 1990s, the early 2000s, a framework emerged in the nonprofit sector that we had to measure everything, right? So that we became very quantified, very measure driven. And that generated a lot of really important data and information that helps us decide we need to do something different, we need to do something better. The underbelly of that important initiative is that sometimes the feeling in a community-based organization, in a nonprofit, is that we have to meet the numbers, right? We've got to, keep being productive. And sometimes the balance gets out of whack and we become very transactional, right? It's like, what's your need? Here's what you're going to do. Boom. And that capacity to be in relationship to each other often suffers. And we're constantly attending to, do we have the right balance of being able to gather important information, of being able to speak to what's the number saying, what's the money being spent, and are we having enough time and energy and space to be in relationship with the people who are being served, right? Because that's where the humanity is so essential to healing and growth, no matter what your service area is. So that's a challenge, right? Like, how do we maintain that balance? And another way to kind of put that is, a lot of times we say, oh, it would be great if we could get the input from people who are receiving the services about how to make it better. But guess what? That takes time. That takes effort, right? And we're so consumed with reporting out and creating our deliverables that it seems like we don't have enough time for those kinds of participatory processes, right? And so how do we create more of those? One other area I would mention is, with this sense of we have to be productive, we have to meet the numbers, we have to, sign off on all the things to do, is that creates stress, that we often carry vicarious trauma. We're often working with folks who've had very difficult situations. And how have nonprofits and community organizations built in a capacity for care for themselves, care for each other, care for the organization, right? And I think these are some of the challenges that we have to look at as an entire sector.
Oh my gosh, I completely agree about the vicarious trauma. As someone who spent several years of my life as a educator, we talk about, we don't term it this, but we all talk about secondary trauma. Whatever it is that the student is going through at home, we have to, and it's not just teachers, it's everyone who has what I am now calling the new frontline. We have to care for ourselves so that we can show up fully for others. So I heard you on numbers, being transactional versus relational, the need for, I guess, real-time feedback from us who are either executing the services or having clients take the services. And then, of course, the space for burnout. I think one of the things that you mentioned that I hope that we can, my organization and others can help with, is that changing of the narrative around those numbers. I talked about redefining evidence. So as somebody who's a grant writer, that's all I do is I talk to my clients about where's our evaluation. But I'm now at the space of trying to do better, what the term is now, data visualization. A better way of showing what the data looks like in anecdotes as opposed to statistics. So plain spoken stories over statistics, and so how do we, and I'm so grateful that an organization like yours at that top level is having those same conversations, because we worry about that. We worry about how to really get the story across that even if you don't see the number move this year, we know in 2 years, when we can keep delivering these services are going to happen. So, so then with that, those things, as the innovation officer, what emerging opportunities do you see for enhancing community impact with our potential collaborations?
Yeah, I'll pick up a thread that you gave us in terms of contextualizing the data. One of the challenges with sort of this way of measuring that we've inherited is that it puts the focus exclusively on the individual. Did the child improve? Did the family improve? And that data point needs a larger story about what resources and support did the child or family have or not have that was a driver of their success or not success, right? So we know that there has been a history of harm and injustice and lack of appropriate levels of funding and allocation in certain communities. And how is that also a part of the story, right? So that we are looking at both supporting individual and family development, and we're also looking at community development, right? And the ways that we need to put more kinds of infrastructure, economic opportunities, educational opportunities, social opportunities, right? That aren't just the individual or the family's responsibility, it's all of our responsibility. And so how are we marrying that visualization in the stories that get told? So I think that's an opportunity for growth. I also think that there is tremendous power in the community-based organizations' capacity to connect the experiences of the people that they're serving with that policy environment. With what are the conditions in the community? Now, having worked in nonprofits, it's a lot just to get the job done as it's currently laid out. I think there's an opportunity, though, for community-based organizations to find time to say, we saw 50 families this week. What common patterns did we see? What barriers did they see? Did they experience in the service system, right? And can we communicate that shared experience of the inadequacy of the system or the inadequacy of the community condition to support them, right? So how do we connect individual experience with advocacy, with alternatives, with doing business in a different way and creating those changes at federal, state, and local policy, right? So I think that's a really rich opportunity to do that. The other thing is, having been here in Broward for now 17 years, when I first came, we told stories about neighborhoods and groups of people only in terms of what they needed. They were two-dimensional. Did you need an after-school program? Did you need a maternal depression program? And now where the opportunity is to recognize that each young person, each family member, each family, each community, each neighborhood has assets, has strengths, has gifts, has passions. They're here on this earth to do amazing things as well. And what happens when we open our paradigm from just, I'm going to fix the need, to what can we do together? What's your gift? What's your passion? What's exciting, right? And then what kinds of things does that open up? So we're doing some work in some of the communities that have historically been labeled as just high need, right? And we're working with what we're calling affectionately community connectors. Mostly women, although we do have some men, who are talking with their neighbors about, what are your gifts? What are you excited about? What do you care about, right? And connecting them to other people who have similar kinds of things. And then they go and they get a $2,000 community grant through this asset-based community development program, and they put on an event in their community. So now we've taken a very small amount of money and we have created 7 events in a community that otherwise wouldn't have happened. And so the opportunity for community-based organizations is to maybe tap into an abundance mindset where it's not, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough resources, but it's, what are the gifts and the passions and the relationships and the networks that are available right now today that we can begin to tap into? I get excited just a little.
Woo. Woo. So for those of you who are watching, do you understand that this organization exists right here in South Florida? I am hoping right here, you see up there, you see the website? I hope that you are looking at that organization and that these 2 women who are advocating for you to take their money and really, to Sue's point, focus on our assets, focus on what's actually able to be happen, to occur, and to Dr. Rumicky's point, in a multi-sector approach. And Sue's a doctor as well. She doesn't have it on her. I just noticed. You don't have it either. Dr. Gallagher, both of them are doctors. Let me make sure you both get your titles, because I know how hard it is to work together. but both of you, the fact that this organization exists, so asset-based community development is amazing. ABCD as an educator, I love that. But also something that I've said to more than a few people: policy is a story told by the community. And so if we are letting others tell our story, letting others set our policy based on the needs instead of on the assets, we are continuing to cement within the community a deficit. But if we can, with our own advocacy, because that's the thing as well, no one is coming to save us. With our own advocacy, telling our own story, if we're able to then speak back to those making policy that these are the strengths that we want to move towards, how amazing will the results be for the children and families that we serve? So I'm just, this has been such a beautiful and robust conversation. I just have a few more questions, and then we'll wrap up. And I see we've got some thumbs up and things like that, which is fantastic. So both of you kind of hinted to this and mentioned it. I know specifically, Dr. Rummicky, your title is Chief Equity and Community Engagement Officer, but Dr. Gallagher, you were just honored as a champion of inclusivity by the the Women's Business Council. Like, it's a whole long title that I'm going to get wrong, but it's the Broward County. The Broward County Commission just had an acknowledgement of you. So both of you speak to and champion inclusivity in your work. So I guess my question is, I think sometimes smaller organizations struggle with what that looks like in everyday practice. So what are some things that smaller organizations that do serve a small part of the community can think about when trying to be inclusive?
Yeah, and I think, one of the key things is to see big organizations, making it a priority, as we have as CSC, and we're committed to promoting that as a priority. That our organization just went under reframing how we do our equity work, and now it's called Inclusivity Matters. To make sure that we're embracing all. And this change reflects our broader mission to create environments where all individuals and communities are valued. And we talked about that, respected, and embrace for them to embrace their perspectives that they bring to the table and their backgrounds. We believe that by changing our terminology a little, it's not like we're running away from something, but we're summarizing something. We're summarizing the holistic approach we're taking to foster more inclusive communities, conditions where everyone's voice is heard and everyone's contributions are celebrated. You heard about the ABCD work. I mean, I'm just like the biggest cheerleader around that we're doing. So when we're thinking about smaller organization and in this consideration around being inclusive, it's essential to cultivate a culture of openness and acceptance within the organization. And that has to start from the leadership. That tone has to be set from leadership, where this is going to be a place where we're promoting inclusion initiatives and we're encouraging open dialogue about certain topics. Secondly, they need to ensure inclusive opportunities are for all individuals. That's paramount. Like, you have celebrations where everybody can celebrate whatever they want, whoever they are, whatever they value, whatever they believe. Have opportunities for that to happen in your organization. I don't care if it's only 2 of you in there. Have a day where you each wear whatever, something from your culture, or wear your flag colors, whatever you want to do. Just make sure that you have that happening. As well as creating inclusive policies and practices. We talked about that a little bit, how the people we drive, the stories of who we are, drive our policies. So we need to have policies that, really kind of accommodate diverse needs, and providing resources for employee education and trainings on topics such as cultural responsiveness, which you can get at CSC for a free or minimum charge. So just another plug there. But I think also fostering a sense of belonging among all employees is essential. And I would go even a step before that, not even just employees, but your volunteers and the people that you serve. And that can be, like I said, just making sure that everybody feel like they belong. But I think, and my colleague would agree with this. Lastly, I would say, don't just say we're going to be inclusive. This is what we're going to do, and this is how it's going to happen. But also take time to regularly assess and reassess those efforts, because you want to ensure that they remain effective and responsive to the evolving needs of the organization and its employees, and that you still have that hand on the pulse of what's going on. So those are just a few things I would offer or suggest that small organizations do when they're trying to be more inclusive.
I appreciate that. It looked like you were going to say something, Sue.
I'm just so excited. Like I was like, yes, yeah. And if I get, I'll just add one maybe micro dimension, because I think that you laid out the spaciousness and the group and the organizational responsibilities and joys in this work, right? One of the things that I've learned on this inclusion journey is really the wisdom of our bodies to let us know, right? Like when we get cramped up, when we get numb, when we get withdrawn, that's a signal that there's something going on, and we can slow down to see what that is. Because, remembering back to the sort of paradigm of nonprofits, move faster, do more, right? Inclusion work is slow work, right? It's noticing what's happening in my body. It's noticing what's happening in my relationship, right? It's sensing into the room, right? Are people being excluded? I also think that, we often want to be like, we've solved the problem. We have, conquered the issue. And inclusion is often about the long journey of acknowledging harm, right? And being able to heal that a bit, right? To really not just blow by it and say, oh yeah, that was a bad thing, and now we're going to keep moving, right? But to acknowledge its effect on children, on families, on communities, and just be able to host that, right? Like that's an important competency of not rushing through, right? Because the trauma response is, I got to keep moving. I got to do something so I don't feel this bad. But when we can host that harm and give ourselves some space to let it breathe and to let it heal itself, right? Because all harms want to heal themselves. Then we've done something different, and we've engaged different kinds of evidence, right? Like when was the last time you were asked how your body felt about a particular question or quandary or concern? We have so much wisdom that we haven't tapped into. And I think being inclusive also means including our bodies, our emotions, as well as what we think.
That's so key, because one of the reasons, going back to what we talked about earlier about burnout, one of the reasons that when I talk to my founders about what's affecting them, we talk about founder syndrome. They're gripping on so tightly because everything is urgent and everything has to be addressed, and they are not taking care of their bodies. So including your own body, not just including your clients, but including your own body, including yourself in the work. It's so amazing. We had a workshop in December, kind of a mini retreat that I hosted. And one of the things that we did at our end our I guess our exit ticket, ever the teacher. Our exit ticket with the founders was them doing a vision of the work that makes their jobs obsolete, right? And so when I talked to them, I said, okay, what is it? What is the world that makes your job obsolete? And I said, and put yourself in it. And when I tell you that the goosebumps that I got, because like I got tears because people had been working on this world, to your point of trauma response, and not putting themselves in it when it is healed and when it is done. You know, so we're doing another retreat Saturday, May 4th, just because they really don't take the time to include themselves. Oh my gosh. And to expand the definition of inclusivity, meaning put yourself in it. Put your needs in it. The work that we're doing, all of us who are in this nonprofit work, I will tell you, just like you said, Dr. Mickey, about going from being a participant, having that actually pivot you into now being a program director and, you know, a program visionary. That's because you benefited from it, and now you've put yourself in it. And now, how many people have you been able to help in their own maternal health journey? Because you are now part of the solution. Be your own answer. So let's come. Oh my gosh, I don't want to come to a close, but we do have to. So I think my question now is, so I'm gonna ask you two questions, but I'll go this last point. So we talked again about storytelling, and either one of you can answer this question. What do you feel is the best way that these small but mighty organizations that I see giving me little loves on Instagram, the small but mighty organizations, how can they communicate their value to you so that they can raise their hand and say, hey, I'm a potential partner? What should they do? What should be in their story to communicate their value to you? And then we'll have one final question.
Okay, I'll start because it kind of goes a good segue to what you just said. And I think it's really crafting a compelling narrative, telling their story. They, you know, start developing a compelling narrative that clearly articulates the organization's mission, vision, and impact. You know, use storytelling to illustrate the real world difference that their work is making in the lives of the people they serve. But not just tell the story, show the receipts. You know, quantify your impact with data. You know, if you're starting off and I'll just use this as a simple example, if you're passing out food at a church on a Saturday morning, start counting how many people you fed or how many bags of food you gave out. You know, start putting some numbers to the story. So when you start crafting that story, you have more validity to it as well. It's just not you with the narrative. And brag on yourself, you know, highlight those unique strengths and expertise you have. You started that organization because you felt like you were the best at doing whatever you were the best at doing. So brag on that, you know, identify and highlight those unique strengths and expertise areas that your organization brings to the table, you know. And I have more, but I'll just let my colleague jump in right there because I know we're short on time. But it's just like, really, like you said, tell your story, but also validate your story. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, that's great. And I would just maybe add a recognition that a lot of times people in underserved, under-resourced communities don't trust government, don't trust large service providers because of a history of harm. And I think one of the ways that CSC has been really excited about partnering with small, sort of community-based organizations is that you have relationships and networks and are reaching people that we're not, and that other large nonprofits aren't. And so I think that part of your story is how you've built trust with people in communities and how you have networks that are sort of pathways to get resources out to folks, to get information back into the system, right? You are an essential conduit of that communication, that trust building, relationship building that's essential for people to be able to get what they need in order to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness, this has been a very just a brilliant experience and conversation. I'm very, very grateful for it. We have one final question, but I wanted to do a few things. Number one, I really want to thank both of you. So Dr. Sue Gallagher, just for those of you who are watching, is the Chief Innovation Officer for the Children's Services Council of Broward. Dr. Sharetta Rimeke is the Chief Equity and Community Engagement Officer of the Children's Services Council of Broward County. This organization has been in existence for several years. I want to say 3 decades. I don't want to say that wrong. Two decades. We're on our way to 3.
Yeah.
On our way to 3. But the organization has been in existence for 2 decades, supporting children and families in Broward County. And I wanted you to hear, for everybody who's listening, children and families is broad, and it is across sectors. Gilda's Club is a specific sector organization for ovarian cancer, right? And for them to be able to receive capacity building support from Children's Services Council says to you that they are taking this amazingly brilliant multi-sector approach. If women are healthy, children are healthy, right? Mm-hmm. So having that broad, huge mindset that takes the entire context of the community. Here's my last question. My last question for you today is, let's talk about the future of nonprofit. If you each ruled the world, how would you like to see the landscape of community service and nonprofit partnerships evolving in the next few years? Are there any innovations or trends that nonprofits should be aware of? So what's your future, the future of nonprofit? And so either one of you can start.
Okay. I'll go ahead because I'm going to let her bring those trends or her innovation.
Okay, sure.
I'll just start. I pride myself as a visionary leader, and shaping the future landscape of community service and nonprofit partnership. My vision, and you heard a part of my story, is deeply rooted in empowering and uplifting local communities. And that's what I like. That's what I envision. Like, if we're going to do this work, how we're going to get communities that we talked about and centered, and not only just here's the money, to somebody and you go fix the problem. Start centering in the community. What's the like Sue said, what are the assets in your community? Where do you need the support? Where could you provide support? Those type of things, but it has to be centered. And in centering community, we definitely got to make sure that we're strengthening grassroots organizations. Local they're often, as Sue said, they're the community backbone of the communities, service efforts. A lot of times they are in the community doing stuff and seeing stuff, and they want to say, okay, let me operationalize the efforts that I'm doing to help uplift my community. Those are most of the grassroots organizations. So we definitely need to kind of strengthen them more, because I believe I just fell into this part where capacity building is part of my purview, where I'm going to be building those initiatives to build capacity for those grassroots organizations. And we talked about it earlier, building trust in relationships. That is foundation to be effective in any, I said that earlier, in any relationship and any community engagement and partnership building, making sure that nonprofits, prioritize building authentic, that's my word, and I haven't used it the whole segment, so I got it in there. Authentic relationships with community members based on mutual respect. transparency and accountability, because I think my vision for this work and how we partner and uplift and build and grow together is all that we do it in a sense of dignity for everyone.
I just want to pause and take that in. I feel like that was a drop the mic moment. So thank you, Sharetta, for that. It was amazing. Yeah. Yes to everything that you said. And also what came to me as you were talking is that I would like to have a slow social sector. A social sector that has the time and space to be in authentic relation with each other, with ourselves, with our planet. You know, one of the things that saddens me is human services is such a narrow focus that how do we incorporate well-being of the earth and the planet in our work, right? Like, how might we be different if we didn't have this? The people who deal with the earth are out here, right? We people. Really, all of that is connected, right? I also want to bring an important consciousness to AI and technology, right? Artificial intelligence is here and it's coming for us. And as a nonprofit sector, we are in the unique position to hold the use of AI in a humane, dignified, community-centric way. And I listened recently to this Israeli historian. His name is Yuval Noah Harari. And he talked about, well, what's the difference between AI and human intelligence? And he says, well, AI can do the rational functions at a much higher level than human intelligence can do. What AI can't do is experience and perceive suffering. And we are at ground zero for that experience that needs to contextualize AI, right? That if this is going to harm folks, harm groups, harm individuals, harm the earth, it's not okay. It's off limits, right? So we as a sector can articulate those things that we need to put limits around. We need to put limits around AI, and we can do that. And so I guess my, vision of the future is a slow social sector that cares for ourselves, each other, and the earth.
What a brilliant way to end. So, I'll just say authenticity. So again, thank you both. We have authenticity, trust, respect, growth, time and space, dignity, slowness, health, connection, context, and the use of the tools, because for me, technology is a tool. The use of the tools to reduce harm, but I feel, I'll add, an amplified joy. I think all of us are doing this because at some point, the work, there was a barrier to someone's joy and freedom. And I think that's the reason that we stepped in. So again, I really want to thank you. I'm going to put up the banners that we have. Again, you want to go ahead, all of that, those of you who are watching on all of our channels, we have LinkedIn, we have YouTube, we have Instagram, and we have Facebook. We're doing that thanks to my silent producer, whose name I'm going to say out loud, Regan Mendoza. We thank you very much to Regan for facilitating. He's an amazing producer. If you don't have a producer, you need him. Other than that, my name is Nerissa Street. You can connect with me at Spring Into Funding, which is our next, we're doing a retreat for nonprofit leaders, addressing some of the things that we discussed here. But my goal today was really to amplify the Children's Services Council of Broward. You all are providing some fantastic resources, and I've had the ability to connect with dozens of nonprofits over the last 2 or 3 years who always ask me where funding is. Here's funding, y'all. There it is. Here's the funding. So here's some of it, but again, you have to show up as partners who are really willing to do the work that these wonderful ladies have laid out for us. So again, thank you so much. Any last minute, anything that you want to add, or is all hearts, minds clear? If anything else, this is the time. We're good.
We're good.
Okay, follows Children's Services Council, CSC Broward on all platforms.
Yes.
Because your marketing is amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. And thank you. So if you wanted to do any follow-up, again, you can reach out to me at springintofunding.com. Have a great evening.